Hey, friends, welcome back to the Do Cool Shit podcast. It's me, Meryl, and I'm going to apologize in advance. I'm a little stuffed up and congested. I've been sick for the past week and feeling so shitty for a couple days. And if you've been waiting for this episode, I did skip a week because there was no way I was recording this last week with the way that I felt. If you're listening to this at a later date, it doesn't matter. But here we are, and we're going to dive into part two. Last episode, we talked about stress and how it's not the main quote unquote problem, how capacity is. And if you haven't listened to that episode, go listen to that one first. When you finish listening to that episode, you're probably going to think like, okay, this makes so much sense, but now what? And that's exactly what we're going to dive into today. In my experience, there's a good chance that many people don't even know what an upregulated nervous system even feels like. But after listening to last episode, hopefully you have a better idea of that if you were in that boat. Now, on the other hand, there's a lot of people that know that they're stressed. And also, knowing that you're stressed doesn't automatically mean you know how to regulate it. Also, knowing that you quote unquote should manage stress doesn't mean you know what that actually looks like in real life. And this is the advice that people give often, especially in the health and fitness industry or fields. We hear coaches a lot of the times talk about you got to manage your stress. It's one of the basics, so to speak, that go into well-being. And that's true, it's all good and well, but also doesn't give a whole lot of direction. And when even when a lot of people are very aware of stress, they still feel stuck. And that's because awareness is key. I always say this, and it's only the first step. It's not the whole skill. So we're going to dive into to more of this now. I really want to ground this in something personal because I I want to normalize this a lot. There might be some people who could recognize some of the things I'm talking about in themselves as well. There was a time in my life when I genuinely believed that I was managing stress well. I was totally one of those people that had no idea, in retrospect, that I was living in this chronically stressed state and had absolutely no idea. I thought that I was doing all the things and, taking care of myself. I worked out a lot. I let loose. I got massages regularly. I hung out with my friends. I got my nails done. Like on the outside, my life looked balanced, I would say, to a lot of people. But behind the scenes, and these were things that I did not recognize at the time, these are things that I recognize after the fact. I was chronically dieting, under fueling. I was always trying to lose weight and doing extremes within that. I had a lot of disordered eating behaviors where most of the time I was trying to eat as little as possible. And then I would have, overeating episodes and then go into this cycle there. I wasn't sleeping enough. I was getting up probably around 4 a.m. most mornings to coach a class early in the morning. I was working until pretty late at night, getting not a whole lot of sleep, maybe 6 hours of sleep a night. constantly. I was drinking alcohol regularly and in large amounts whenever I would. I was training all of the time. My rest days to me were me lifting at 50%. There really was not days that I had unless I was on a vacation. And even then, I would still work out that I was not being pretty darn physically active. So I wasn't recovering. I wasn't aware of or processing any emotions that I had. I was very much ignoring how I was feeling and just trying to do things that would make me feel better, which is probably why I didn't take rest days either. And I was putting constant pressure on myself to be optimal or just be someone or be viewed as someone who did it all and didn't really struggle. And I thought that stress management meant offsetting stress. And I honestly had no idea in this time of my life or really like had a full picture of what even went into stress. Um I had no idea like what these things were. I didn't even think that working out was something that added to stress. But what I was actually doing was just adding more to an already full cup. I was very reactive. I lived in disappointment. It was very rare that I felt proud of myself or like I did good enough. I kind of always felt like I was failing with things, and that's partly because I expected optimal all of the time. And eventually my body kind of like tapped out. I had lost my period. I also had a number of injuries that had happened in a small amount of time. And, this didn't happen because I wasn't strong enough, but it happened because my systems just didn't feel safe or supported enough to keep doing everything that I was asking of it. I said last episode that your body is really freaking smart and it's really trying to be your best friend and your number one support system. And it's going to do absolutely everything it can to keep you safe and keep you alive. And I mean, the funny thing is that even then, even when I lost my period, I didn't realize what had happened. I felt broken and I was like, oh, this is weird. And I, full disclosure, didn't have a very quote unquote normal cycle up until that point either. So I didn't know what that felt like. And I thought that having a very painful period was normal. But yeah, it felt broken. I didn't know why. And after that period of time, after I had lost my period and I went to doctors, and even then, when I went to doctors, nobody addressed the fact of like what my lifestyle looks like, what my fitness level, my nutrition, even to them, they were like, "Oh, you're healthy." That's a whole tangent, different story I won't go into, but um, so after that, I had a very long period of recovery, and honestly, that recovery period for me was brought on because I had this massive move where we moved overseas. My husband's in the Air Force, and we had a change of station. We PCSed to Europe. And so we had this massive move, and I was taken out of my routine and my schedule and my environment, and my life was being shaken up entirely. And that kind of caused me to go into a period of time where I had other opportunity. I was eating more food because I was in this place of like, well, I can't read it. And so I'm just going to eat it, even though I knew it was chocolate. um, That's how I was in this very disordered state in myself. But that actually did help in kind of healing my systems and my body in some ways. I was eating more calories. I was getting more sleep because I wasn't waking up so early in the morning to run classes. I went through a big identity shift. That's saying it lightly. I went through an identity crisis of sorts. And because of that, I was getting a lot more rest. I had a period of time where I wasn't really able to train or work out because I was in the process of moving. So that kind of gave my systems this like, hey, we're safe. It's okay. These things are changing. And then I went through a few years of my life being very different, me being able to get out, like in retrospect, get out of that chronically stressed state. I was being able to regulate more because I was traveling and I was adventuring, and my life was a bit more low key. I was being able to recover a lot more. So, and that put me into a better place where my body felt less broken. And that was years. I will say that years and years, until I actually I got my period back, was probably like 6 months to a year until it was back, like, fairly regularly. A couple years until it was pretty regular, where I was still having painful symptoms associated with it, and then a few more years, past that of a lot more regularity, taking care of myself, where I got into better nutritional habits and a better mental state when it came to my relationship with food and myself and fitness, even as well, where then I had a lot more normal cycles, less pain, and my body started to thrive a lot more. Um, but let's I just wanna kinda normalize and throw a little bit of my experience out there, but, I'm gonna shift a little bit into a reframe where along my journey, and I know I talk to a lot of other people about this, people that I work with on a professional basis, people that I coach, where there's this big misunderstanding, and again, I had this for a while too, where regulation means being calm all the time, and it doesn't. Being regulated and being calm are actually not the same thing. Regulation means flexibility and adaptability. It means that your nervous system can mobilize when needed. You know, it can go into a heightened state when threat is perceived, but then it can come back down. It can go into a rest and digest state when needed, and then um, it can again come down when it is appropriate. It can move between states instead of getting stuck in that, usually getting stuck in the heightened state. Most people don't get stuck in in a regulated state. Um, you're supposed to have stress responses. You're supposed to ramp up. That's not the problem. The problem is when you don't know how to come down or you don't feel safe enough to try. You know, you can be highly disciplined and also deeply dysregulated at the same time. You can be productive and exhausted. You can be handling all the things while your body is quietly struggling. Regulation isn't about turning off stress. It's about knowing how to complete or move through the stress cycle. And we talk about capacity, how capacity is such a cornerstone here. This is kind of where it all comes together. A lot of people, I think, think that capacity is something that you either have or you don't have, or it's something that's a little bit more finite where you have a certain amount to work with forever. It's like a little bit more of a fixed mindset with thought to capacity, but that's not how it works. Capacity is built, and you build it by supporting the systems that hold stress, not by avoiding stress altogether. So let's come back to that cup that we talked about last episode. You already know stress pours in, and when the cup overflows, things spill. And again, a lot of people focus only on how do I put less in the cup, and that's important. But I would say the more powerful question here is how do I build a bigger cup? Let's talk about how capacity is built. Physiological capacity, how you can build this. Sleeping enough and doing that consistently. Eating enough food. And this means all food categories. Okay. So protein, carbohydrates, fats, getting in micronutrients as well. And this is why we talk about quality food being the majority of your diet, but also there's other foods. The fun foods can be part of that too. Strength training done with recovery and not living chronically under fueling. I'm going to repeat that. If you're constantly trying to lose weight, constantly dieting, and you're not doing it in a way that's sustainable, there's a lot of people that I work with that we are focusing on fat loss, but it is a longer term thing because we're also working on behaviors and we're working on lifestyle changes. And there's this big room for flux because they're not in high caloric deficits on a day-to-day basis. There's days built in where they're not in a caloric deficit. There's maybe weeks built in where they're not in caloric deficit. So it's just chronically dieting to extremes. We do not want that. That is, your body does not love that, and it does not support building capacity here. Your body needs resources to feel safe. Nervous system capacity is learning how to downshift on purpose. Downshift, or we could use so many car analogies here where I think Bonnie had talked about in the episode she was on, where, if you have big gas, if you're you big gas pedals, then you also have to have big brakes. Learn how to use both of them. You can't be driving high speed all of the time, right? Learn how to downshift on purpose or learn how to use your brakes on purpose. Breathing, sensory input, orientation, where you ground yourself and you can think about things that are around you, taking deep breaths, feeling things, transitioning between roles. You go from work to home, you go from training to rest. You go from a simple one that I like to give people is if you go to the gym and you rage out and you're listening to metal or gangster rap or whatever, and you go hard in the paint for that session. When you get into the car afterwards, put on some relaxing music, bump up the Enya and breathe. Have transitions in your life where you're, again, just not on the gas for everything. Let your body actually come down. Emotional capacity, feeling emotions instead of suppressing them or numbing them or trying to avoid them. Actually name the things that you're feeling and allow yourself to feel those things. Your body learns that it's okay. You're going to be safe. Those things are not dangerous, and that you are able to tolerate those things. Naming internal pressure instead of actually internalizing it. Letting go of optimal all the time, allow yourself to realize that you can be imperfect and it's going to be okay. And it's actually going to be more than okay, because you actually grow and make more progress when you allow yourself to be imperfect. This is where a lot of people resist in these areas, because slowing down can feel unsafe if you are used to pushing all of the time. It feels unsafe, it feels unnatural. There's a whole lot of voices, mind gremlins, that get very, very loud, and it feels uncomfortable. And it is key. It is key, my friends. I want to talk about resilience here as well. Resilience is a word that I associate with regulation a lot. And this is a word, I had a conversation with a client recently about this word and the misunderstanding she had of it. And this is something I see in a lot of people, where they think of resilience as like white knuckling or pushing harder or just withstanding, um, like tolerating that misery, where resilience is actually the ability to stay present without abandoning yourself. It is built through recovery and repair and adjustment. I also used to think that resilience meant like endurance through hardship. You just let that shit hit you in the face, but you're still standing. But now I see that is I see it as responsiveness. It's being able to notice when things are too much, when you or something needs support, when something needs to be adjusted. It's naming how you're feeling and, being able to sit in that while also doing the things that support you. And this is something that I would have used to think is a weakness, but it's not. It is a skill. And I've seen this in myself, and I see this in people that I work with all the time, that when they develop the skill of resilience, they become stronger human beings. So, practical ways that you can start without overhauling your whole entire life. Like, you don't need to change everything. And I want to say that you don't need to fix things either. I freaking hate the word, fixing things, because again, I don't view this as being broken. So, knowing that starting small and starting intentionally, or being intentional, is everything. Here are a few things that you can begin with. Start with one daily downshift, something that signals safety to your systems. For some of my clients, it could be like listening to some calming music on their way home from work, or again, after the gym. Some of my clients will listen to um, the Bible or something like that, even. It could be journaling after a hard day, something to downshift, something small. One transition ritual. So instead of like carrying stress from one role to the next, you have something that you think about, like, when I leave the door of work, I'm leaving everything behind. And you can kind of like visualize that, or you can say something to yourself, like a little mantra, when you walk out that door and then you go into that next role. One capacity is supporting behavior. So this could be within sleep, within nutrition and fueling, within rest, within setting boundaries. Start with something small. It could be a phone bedtime, where an alarm on your phone goes off, and At that time, your phone goes and gets plugged in and goes to bed for the rest of the night. Or it could be you having an actual bedtime or a time where you start to wind down. It could be saying no to things that you don't want to do, something small, and ask yourself regularly, is this adding to my cup or helping it recover? You do not need perfection. I feel like I need to continue to repeat that. The goal is not perfection. The goal is awareness and repetition. Okay? Let yourself play. Let yourself practice. Let yourself learn. This is how we do cool shit. Stress is not the enemy. Stress, as we have learned, is not inherently bad and it actually helps us do a lot of cool shit in life, and it helps, protect us. Um, your life isn't wrong if you have stress in it. You're not broken if you feel stressed. All right. A lot of people are just asking their nervous system to do more than it's like really supposed to handle, right? If you're chronically living in this place of fear and threat and like thinking that you're going to get attacked by a tiger and you either need to battle it or run away from it, then that's the main focus, right? You also don't need a calmer life. Your life can stay the same. You don't need an overhaul. You just need a system that can hold the life you already have. And when you build capacity, everything changes. Your energy, your recovery, your hormones, your digestion, your relationship with stress itself, your relationship with yourself, your belief in what you're capable of. That's real resilience. And this is a skill, or these are skills that you can learn. So use these things as always. Cool shit is on the other side of doing. So start small. Again, allow yourself to fuck around and find out. Allow yourself to feel the things you're feeling, but still continue to move forward in acting as the person that you want to be. This stuff isn't easy and it's worth it. If anything in this episode or the last two episodes spoke to you, I would love to hear about it. I would love to hear about how you're using these things or anything that stood out to you, things that you learned, things that maybe sparked something for you. Please shoot me a message on Instagram or an email and let me know. There's also a worksheet that is attached that will support you in building your capacity. So click that link, it's in the show notes, and that will take you to a page where you can just simply put in your name and your email and get that sent to you for free. And that will help guide you through a few things that will help you build your capacity. So until next time, I will talk with you soon.